penthouse, a testament to years of relentless ambition, loomed above the city like a defiant titan. Each meticulously crafted detail, from the cascading waterfall in the atrium to the minimalist kitchen island, bore the imprint of my obsessive pursuit of perfection. Yet, perfection, I now realized, was a mirage, a shimmering illusion shattered by the brutal shards of reality. Rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows, mirroring the tempest raging within me. The silence, usually a serene companion, now pressed down, suffocating. Where the laughter of my beloved once echoed, only the mournful wail of the wind remained. On the polished marble coffee table, a single delicate earring lay abandoned. A replica, I knew, of the one that adorned the ear of Julian, the renowned artist whose name had become an unwelcome intruder in the sanctity of our home. A love letter, scrawled in a hurried, passionate hand, lay beside it, its words a venomous serpent coiling around my heart. Each line, a fresh wound, a searing indictment of my own naivety. I had always prided myself on my ability to anticipate, to control. Yet, I had been blindsided utterly and completely. The woman I believed to be my confidant, my equal, my muse, had woven a tapestry of deceit, her betrayal as sharp and unexpected as a shattered masterpiece. The scent of jasmine, a perfume she only wore when visiting Julian's studio, hung heavy in the air, a suffocating reminder of her clandestine rendezvous. Each inhalation was a fresh assault, a bitter reminder of the shattered trust, the shattered dreams. My vision blurred. The city lights, usually a dazzling spectacle, now appeared dim, distorted through a veil of grief. The penthouse, once a haven of peace, had become a gilded cage, a monument to my shattered illusions. And I, the architect of my own happiness, was now trapped within its cold, unforgiving embrace. The clock on the wall, a sleek, minimalist design I'd chosen myself, ticked with an almost cruel precision, each second a hammer blow against my fragile composure. I moved, a ghost in my own home, the polished floors reflecting my distorted image. I found myself in the study, a room usually filled with the comforting scent of aged leather and the soft glow of my desk lamp. Tonight it was a battleground, the scene of my devastating discovery. I replayed the events of the past few days, searching for clues, for the subtle shifts in her behavior that I had so tragically missed. Her name, Anya, now tasted like ash in my mouth. I had been so convinced of our shared understanding, our unspoken bond. I had built our life on a foundation of trust, a foundation she had systematically undermined. I recalled the late nights she claimed to be working on gallery installations, the hurried phone calls she'd taken in hushed tones, the way she'd flinched when I'd touched her, as if my very presence was a violation. Each memory, once a benign detail of our shared life, now morphed into a damning piece of evidence. I opened my laptop, the cool metal a stark contrast to the burning anger within me. I scrolled through our shared photo albums, each image a painful reminder of what we had lost. Anya's smile, once a source of boundless joy, now appeared like a cruel mockery. The images of our travels, the intimate moments we'd shared, were now tainted, poisoned by the knowledge of her betrayal. I found myself fixated on a particular photograph, taken during our trip to the coast. Anya stood on a windswept cliff, her hair dancing in the breeze, her gaze fixed on the horizon. It was a picture of serene beauty, a moment captured in time. But now, I saw something else, a distance in her eyes, a subtle detachment that I had been too blind to see. I closed the laptop, the sudden darkness amplifying the oppressive silence. I felt a profound sense of isolation, a chilling realization that I was utterly alone. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, had become a stranger, a phantom haunting the halls of my own home. And I, the man who had built his life on logic and control, was now adrift in a sea of grief and rage, with no compass to guide me. Dawn crept through the panoramic windows, painting the city skyline in hues of gray and pale rose. The new day, however, offered no solace, only a stark continuation of my torment. I moved through the apartment, each step a heavy, deliberate act, as if navigating a minefield. The scent of Anya's favorite tea, usually a comforting aroma, now triggered a wave of nausea. I found myself drawn to the balcony, the cool morning air a stark contrast to the burning intensity of my emotions. The city stretched out before me, a vast, indifferent landscape. I watched as the first rays of sunlight illuminated the distant buildings, each a testament to human ambition, much like my own shattered dreams. My mind, a relentless engine, replayed the fragments of our conversations, searching for the hidden meanings, the unspoken truths. I remembered a recent dinner party, a gathering of friends and colleagues. Anya had been unusually animated, her laughter echoing through the room. Now I realized, her joy had been fueled by deceit, her laughter a mask for her clandestine affair. I recalled a conversation we had shared about Julian's latest exhibition. Anya had spoken with an almost breathless enthusiasm, her eyes sparkling with an intensity that had seemed, at the time, like genuine admiration. Now, I understood her passion was not for art but for the artist himself. The realization was a crushing blow, a stark reminder of my own blindness. I had been so consumed by my work, so convinced of our shared happiness, that I had failed to see the subtle signs of her betrayal. I had been a fool, a complacent husband, blind to the darkness that had been growing in the shadows. I leaned against the railing, the cold metal a grounding presence. I needed a plan, a way to channel my rage, to transform my grief into action. I would not allow myself to be consumed by despair. I would not become a victim of Anya's deceit. I would find a way to reclaim my life, to restore the balance that had been so cruelly disrupted. The city below, with its relentless energy and its constant hum, seemed to offer a silent challenge, a call to action. I would not falter. I would not break. I would rise from the ashes of my shattered illusions, stronger and more determined than ever. The days that followed were a blur of activity, a frantic attempt to regain control. I immersed myself in work, the demands of a major new project a welcome distraction. I met with clients, reviewed blueprints, and negotiated contracts, each task a small victory in my battle against despair. Yet, even in the midst of this whirlwind, Anya's presence lingered, a ghost haunting the periphery of my vision. I saw her in the curve of a staircase, in the reflection of a window, in the scent of her perfume that clung to my clothes. Each encounter, however fleeting, was a fresh reminder of my loss, a sharp pang of grief that threatened to overwhelm me. I found myself drawn to Julian's work, a morbid fascination with the man who had stolen my wife. I visited his studio, a converted warehouse in the industrial district, under the pretense of acquiring a piece for our collection. I studied his paintings, their bold strokes and vibrant colors a stark contrast to the sterile perfection of my own world. I watched Julian as he worked, his movements fluid and confident, his eyes alight with passion. I saw the way he interacted with Anya, their shared glances and whispered conversations a silent confirmation of their intimacy. The sight was a knife to my heart, a constant reminder of my own exclusion. I purchased one of Julian's paintings, a large abstract canvas dominated by swirling shades of red and black. I hung it in the living room, a constant reminder of Anya's betrayal, a symbol of my own wounded pride. The painting became a focal point, a silent witness to my growing obsession. I began to research Julian, delving into his past, his relationships, his artistic influences. I learned about his childhood in a small coastal town, his rebellious youth, his meteoric rise to fame. I discovered his reputation as a womanizer, a man who used his charm and talent to seduce and discard. The knowledge fueled my anger, confirming my suspicions about Anya's vulnerability. I saw her as a victim of Julian's manipulation, a pawn in his game of conquest. The thought of her innocence being exploited, her trust being betrayed, filled me with a righteous fury. I would not allow her to be destroyed by this man. I would protect her even if it meant destroying him in the process. My plan began to take shape, a dark seed germinating in the fertile ground of my despair. I would not resort to violence, to the crude satisfaction of physical retribution. My revenge would be more subtle, more refined, a masterpiece of psychological manipulation worthy of my own architectural prowess. I began by subtly altering our living space, erasing Anya's presence while maintaining the illusion of normalcy. I replaced her favorite throw pillows with ones that mirrored the colors of Julian's painting. I rearranged the furniture, subtly shifting the energy of the room, creating a sense of unease. I filled the apartment with the scent of sandalwood, a fragrance I knew Julian favored, a constant reminder of his intrusion into our lives. I also began to manipulate Anya's routine, subtly disrupting her sense of comfort and security. I would leave for work earlier than usual, returning at unpredictable hours. I would feign exhaustion, withdrawing into my study, leaving her alone with her guilt and her growing sense of isolation. I watched as Anya's confidence began to crumble, her vibrant spirit dimming under the weight of my silent disapproval. Her laughter, once a constant melody in our home, became a rare and hesitant sound. Her eyes, once bright with joy, now held a flicker of fear, a constant apprehension of my next move. I knew she was aware of my manipulations, of the subtle shifts in our environment and my behavior. Yet, she remained silent, trapped in a web of her own making. She was afraid to confront me, afraid to acknowledge her betrayal, afraid of the consequences that awaited her. I savored her fear, her growing sense of unease. It was a perverse satisfaction, a dark pleasure that fueled my desire for revenge. I was no longer the loving husband, the supportive partner. I had become a puppeteer, pulling the strings of her emotions, orchestrating her descent into despair. And yet, even as I reveled in my power, a part of me mourned the loss of the woman I had loved. I saw glimpses of the old Anya in her hesitant smiles, in her fleeting moments of tenderness. But those glimpses were quickly extinguished, replaced by the cold reality of her betrayal. I knew there was no turning back. I had crossed a line, and there was no way to undo the damage I had inflicted. I was committed to my plan, driven by a thirst for revenge that consumed me entirely. My manipulations extended beyond our home. I began to subtly undermine Anya's professional life, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of her colleagues and clients. I would casually mention her distracted state, her lack of focus, in conversations with those who held influence in her career. I would subtly sabotage her projects, delaying deadlines, misplacing documents, creating an atmosphere of chaos and incompetence. I watched as Anya's professional reputation began to crumble, her once stellar career now teetering on the brink of collapse. She became withdrawn, her confidence shattered, her once vibrant personality replaced by a shadow of her former self. The joy she had found in her work, a source of pride and fulfillment, was now a distant memory. I knew my actions were cruel, even vindictive, but I felt no remorse, only a cold satisfaction at seeing Anya suffer the consequences of her betrayal. I had become a master manipulator, a puppet master pulling the strings of her life, orchestrating her downfall with ruthless efficiency. Yet, even as I reveled in my power, a nagging doubt began to creep into my mind. Was this truly what I wanted? Was this the revenge I had envisioned? Was I not, in my quest for retribution, becoming the very monster I despised? I tried to push these doubts aside, to focus on the righteous anger that fueled my actions. But the questions lingered, a persistent echo in the chambers of my heart. I found myself questioning my motives, my methods, my very sanity. One evening, as I sat alone in my study, surrounded by the trophies of my success, I realized the truth. My revenge was not about justice, it was about control. I had been wounded, betrayed, and my response was to exert dominance over Anya, to punish her for daring to defy me. The realization was a bitter pill to swallow, a stark reminder of my own flaws. I had become consumed by my own ego, my own need for power. I had lost sight of the love that had once bound us, the shared dreams that had once defined our lives. I looked out the window at the city lights, their twinkling glow a mockery of my own inner darkness. I knew I had to find a way to stop, to break free from this cycle of revenge. But how? How could I undo the damage I had inflicted? How could I reclaim the man I once was? The turning point came unexpectedly, in the form of a phone call. It was Anya's mother, her voice trembling with concern. Anya had collapsed, she explained, rushed to the hospital with a suspected heart condition. The news hit me like a physical blow, the carefully constructed walls of my anger crumbling in an instant. Fear, raw and primal, surged through me. I rushed to the hospital, the sterile hallways echoing with my frantic footsteps. I found Anya in a private room, pale and fragile, hooked up to a myriad of machines. The sight of her vulnerability, her mortality laid bare, shattered the last vestiges of my anger. All that remained was a profound sense of regret, a crushing realization of the damage I had inflicted. I spent the next few days by her bedside, holding her hand, whispering apologies that I knew she couldn't hear. I watched as the doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize her condition, their faces etched with concern. I prayed, for the first time in years, begging for a second chance, a chance to undo the pain I had caused. Anya eventually regained consciousness, her eyes fluttering open to meet mine. In that moment, all the bitterness, all the anger, melted away. All I saw was the woman I loved, the woman I had nearly destroyed. "Mark," she whispered, her voice weak but clear. "I'm here, Anya," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I'm so sorry." She reached out a trembling hand, her touch a fragile forgiveness. In that instant, I knew that my revenge was over. The elaborate plan, the carefully orchestrated manipulations, all seemed meaningless in the face of her vulnerability. I had been consumed by my own darkness, blinded by my own pain. But Anya's illness, her near-death experience, had jolted me awake, forcing me to confront the consequences of my actions. I had nearly lost her, the woman who meant more to me than anything in the world. And in that moment of profound realization, I vowed to change. I would dedicate myself to healing Anya, to rebuilding our relationship, to atoning for the sins of my past. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but I was determined to make amends, to earn back the trust one had so carelessly squandered. Anya's recovery was slow and arduous. The doctors warned of potential long-term complications, the possibility of further episodes. Fear became my constant companion, a shadow lurking in the corners of my mind. Every twinge, every cough, sent a jolt of panic through me. I became Anya's caretaker, attending to her every need with a devotion bordering on obsession. I cooked her meals, monitored her medication, and helped her with the simplest of tasks. I read to her, played her music, and filled our home with flowers, hoping to bring some joy into her convalescence. Anya, weakened and vulnerable, seemed to accept my care with a quiet resignation. The spark in her eyes, the vibrant energy that had once defined her, was gone, replaced by a weary acceptance. She rarely spoke of Julian, the affair a silent elephant in the room. I knew that forgiveness would not come easily, that the wounds I had inflicted ran deep, but I was determined to earn it, to prove to Anya that I was a changed man. I confessed my manipulations, the subtle cruelties I had inflicted upon her. I laid bare my soul, exposing the darkness that had consumed me. Anya listened in silence, her expression unreadable. When I had finished, she simply said, "I need time, Mark. Time to heal, time to understand." I granted her that time, respecting her need for space. I continued to care for her, but I also gave her the freedom to withdraw, to process her emotions. I knew that trust, once broken, was difficult to rebuild. But I was patient, willing to wait as long as it took. Our apartment, once a symbol of our shared success, now felt like a sterile prison. The echoes of our past happiness haunted the hallways, a constant reminder of what we had lost. I longed to escape its confines, to find a place where we could start anew. One day, while browsing through a real estate magazine, I stumbled upon an advertisement for a secluded cottage in the countryside. The picture showed a charming stone house nestled amidst rolling hills, a haven of peace and tranquility. It seemed like the perfect place to heal, to rebuild our lives away from the ghosts of the past. I showed the advertisement to Anya, a tentative hope flickering in my eyes. To my surprise, She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "It's beautiful," she whispered, and in that moment, I knew that we had found our sanctuary, a place where we could begin the long and arduous journey of healing and forgiveness. The cottage was everything I had hoped for and more. Nestled in a valley, surrounded by fields of wildflowers and ancient forests, it was a world away from the noise and chaos of the city. The air was clean and crisp, the silence broken only by the chirping of birds and the gentle rustling of leaves. We settled into a quiet routine, our days filled with simple pleasures. We tended to the garden, planting vegetables and herbs, nurturing life back into the neglected soil. We explored the surrounding countryside, discovering hidden paths and breathtaking vistas. We cooked together, sharing meals on the terrace, watching the sun set over the distant hills. Slowly, tentatively, Anya began to emerge from her shell. The color returned to her cheeks, the light to her eyes. She laughed again, a genuine, heartfelt laughter that filled me with joy. She started painting again, her canvases filled with the vibrant colors of the natural world. Our conversations, once strained and hesitant, became easier, more open. We spoke of our fears, our regrets, our hopes for the future. We shared our dreams, the ones we had abandoned and the new ones that were taking root. One evening, as we sat by the fire, Anya turned to me, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and determination. "Mark," she said, "I need to tell you something." She confessed the full extent of her affair with Julian, the emotional and physical intimacy they had shared. She spoke of her confusion, her vulnerability, her desperate need for connection. She spared no detail, her honesty both painful and liberating. I listened without interruption, my heart aching with a mixture of grief and understanding. I saw the depth of her remorse, the genuine regret for the pain she had caused. And in that moment, I realized that forgiveness was not a choice, but a necessity. "Anya," I said, taking her hand in mine, "I forgive you. I forgive you for the affair, for the lies, for the pain. But most importantly, I forgive myself. I forgive myself for my blindness, for my anger, for the ways in which I pushed you away." Tears streamed down Anya's face, tears of relief, of gratitude, of love. We held each other close, the warmth of our embrace a balm for our wounded souls. In that moment, we were no longer husband and wife, but two souls bound by a shared history, a shared pain, and a shared hope for the future. Life at the cottage was a slow, healing balm. The days unfolded with a gentle rhythm, dictated by the rising and setting of the sun, the changing seasons, the needs of our garden. We found solace in the simplicity of our existence, in the absence of distractions and demands. Anya's health gradually improved. The color returned to her cheeks, the sparkle to her eyes. She resumed her painting with renewed vigor, her canvases now filled with the vibrant hues of the countryside, the delicate beauty of wildflowers, the majestic sweep of the sky. Our relationship, too, began to blossom anew. The trust that had been shattered was slowly, painstakingly rebuilt. We learned to communicate again, to listen without judgment, to express our needs and fears without reservation. We rediscovered the intimacy we had lost, not just the physical intimacy, but the emotional intimacy that had been the foundation of our love. We held hands, we cuddled on the sofa, we shared whispered secrets in the dark. We learned to cherish the small moments, the stolen glances, the shared smiles, the gentle touch of a hand. Yet the past was not easily forgotten. The scars of Anya's betrayal, of my own vengeful actions, remained. We both carried the weight of our mistakes, the knowledge that we had hurt each other deeply. One day, while cleaning out the attic, I stumbled upon a box of old photographs. Among them was a picture of Anya and Julian, taken at a gallery opening. They were standing close together, their smiles radiant, their eyes locked in a gaze of undeniable intimacy. The sight of that photograph brought back a flood of painful memories, the anger and resentment I thought I had overcome. I felt a surge of jealousy, a primal urge to possess Anya, to erase Julian from her past. I confronted Anya with the photograph, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "How could you?" I demanded. "How could you betray me like that?" Anya looked at me with sadness and understanding. "Mark," she said gently, "that was then. This is now. We can't change the past, but we can choose our future." Her words were a gentle reminder, a call to reason. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. I looked at Anya, at the love and compassion in her eyes, and I knew that she was right. We had come too far to let the ghosts of the past destroy us. We had found a new beginning, a new love, a new life, and we would not let it slip away. The seasons turned, painting the countryside in a tapestry of vibrant colors. Spring brought a profusion of wildflowers, their delicate blooms carpeting the meadows. Summer bathed the land in golden sunlight, ripening the fruits in our garden. Autumn painted the leaves in fiery hues, transforming the forests into a blaze of glory. And winter brought a blanket of snow, muffling the sounds of the world and creating a sense of hushed tranquility. We embraced the rhythm of nature, finding a sense of peace and purpose in the cycles of life and death. We nurtured our garden, harvesting the bounty of our labors. We explored the surrounding countryside, discovering hidden streams and ancient ruins. We read books, listened to music, and shared long conversations by the fire. And slowly, imperceptibly, the pain of the past began to fade. The memories of Anya's betrayal, of my own vengeful actions, lost their sharp edges, becoming muted echoes in the chambers of our hearts. One evening, as we sat on the terrace, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky, Anya turned to me, her eyes shining with a newfound serenity. "Mark," she said, "I think it's time." I knew what she meant. It was time to let go of the past, to release the ghosts that had haunted us for so long. It was time to forgive, to heal, to move forward. We held a small ceremony in the garden, a symbolic farewell to the pain and betrayal that had marked our lives. We wrote down our regrets, our fears, our resentments, and cast them into the flames of a bonfire. We watched as the flames consumed our words, transforming them into smoke and ashes, releasing them into the universe. As the fire died down, leaving behind a bed of glowing embers, we embraced, our bodies pressed close together, our hearts beating in unison. We felt a sense of closure, a release from the burdens we had carried for so long. And in that moment, we knew that we were truly free. Free from the past, free from the pain, free to embrace the future with open hearts and renewed hope. The peace we found at the cottage was not a static, unchanging state, but a dynamic, evolving process. It was a constant negotiation, a delicate dance between our individual needs and our shared desires. We learned to respect each other's boundaries, to give each other space when needed, to come together in support when challenges arose. One such challenge emerged in the form of Anya's lingering health concerns. Despite the progress she had made, the shadow of her heart condition loomed over us, a constant reminder of her fragility. We consulted specialists, explored treatment options, and adjusted our lifestyle to minimize stress and maximize her well-being. The uncertainty was a constant source of anxiety, but it also brought us closer together. We learned to appreciate the preciousness of each moment, the fragility of life. We made a conscious effort to live in the present, to savor the simple joys of our existence, to express our love and gratitude for each other every day. One crisp autumn afternoon, while walking in the woods, Anya suddenly collapsed. Panic surged through me as I rushed to her side, her body limp and unresponsive. I called for help, my voice echoing through the silent trees. The ambulance arrived quickly, its sirens shattering the tranquility of the countryside. Anya was rushed to the hospital, where she underwent a series of tests and procedures. The doctors discovered a blockage in her coronary artery, requiring immediate surgery. I waited anxiously in the waiting room, my mind racing with fear and uncertainty. The hours stretched into an eternity, each tick of the clock a hammer blow against my fragile hope. Finally, the surgeon emerged, his face etched with fatigue but his eyes conveying a message of cautious optimism. The surgery had been successful, he explained, but Anya would need time to recover, to regain her strength. Relief washed over me, so intense it was almost overwhelming. I rushed to Anya's bedside, taking her hand in mine, whispering words of love and encouragement. She squeezed my hand weakly, a faint smile gracing her lips. In that moment, I knew that our love was stronger than ever, forged in the crucible of adversity. We had faced our demons, overcome our challenges, and emerged from the darkness with a renewed appreciation for the gift of life. Anya's recovery was slow but steady. She spent weeks in the hospital, undergoing rehabilitation and adjusting to her new medications. I was a constant presence by her side, reading to her, playing her music, and offering words of encouragement. We returned to the cottage, where Anya continued her convalescence. Our days were filled with quiet routines, gentle walks in the garden, and long conversations by the fire. We rediscovered the simple pleasures of life, the beauty of nature, the comfort of companionship. One evening, as we sat on the terrace, watching the sunset paint the sky in a riot of colors, Anya turned to me, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and determination. "Mark," she said, "I want to go back to the city." Her words surprised me. I had assumed that we would remain at the cottage, that our life here had become our new normal. But I also understood her desire to return to her work, to her friends, to the vibrant energy of urban life. "Are you sure?" I asked, concern lacing my voice. "Are you strong enough?" "I am," she said with a firm nod. "And I need to do this. I need to reclaim my life, my identity." I supported her decision, knowing that it was an important step in her healing process. We packed our belongings, said goodbye to the cottage that had been our sanctuary, and returned to the city. The transition was not without its challenges. Anya faced setbacks, moments of fatigue and frustration, but she persevered, drawing strength from her newfound resilience and the unwavering support of her friends and colleagues. She resumed her work, her creativity flowing with renewed vigor. She reconnected with her social circle, finding solace and inspiration in the company of others. And she continued to nurture our relationship, tending to the flame of our love with care and devotion. Life in the city was a stark contrast to the tranquility of the countryside. The constant noise, the crowds, the relentless pace of life. It was a sensory overload after the peace and quiet of the cottage. Yet, there was also a vibrancy and energy that was both exhilarating and exhausting. Anya thrived in this environment. She threw herself back into her work, her creativity ignited by the urban landscape. Her paintings became bolder, more abstract, reflecting the complexities and contradictions of city life. She held exhibitions, garnering critical acclaim and re-establishing herself as a prominent figure in the art world. I too found a renewed sense of purpose in my work. I took on challenging projects, pushing the boundaries of architecture and design. I collaborated with Anya on several installations, our creative energies intertwining to produce stunning works of art. Our social life blossomed. We attended gallery openings, theater performances, and dinner parties, reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. We found a community of like-minded individuals, artists, and intellectuals who stimulated our minds and enriched our lives. Yet, amidst the hustle and bustle, we never forgot the lessons we had learned at the cottage. We made time for each other, for quiet evenings at home, for long walks in the park, for intimate conversations that nurtured our connection. We also made a conscious effort to give back to the community. We volunteered at a local soup kitchen, offering support to those less fortunate. We donated to charities, supporting causes that aligned with our values. And we mentored young artists, sharing our knowledge and experience to help them realize their dreams. Our life was not perfect. There were still challenges, disagreements, and moments of doubt. But we had learned to navigate these difficulties with grace and compassion, our love serving as a compass guiding us through the storms.